My name is George Hargis, and I am the PR manager for USPA. I am so excited to be joined by Bill Wenger, who is this year's chief judge for the accuracy landing event at USPA Nationals. And Bill was a U.S. Army Golden Knight from 1974 to 1980 and has dedicated much of his life to coaching and developing military skydivers and bringing dozens of teams to the USPA National Collegiate Parachute Championships. He also pioneered the eight-way formation skydiving discipline and earned numerous medals in both formation skydiving and accuracy landing, both on the national level and at world competitions. So, welcome, Bill.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about yourself for the people who don't know about you. When did you start skydiving?
Well, if I could go back to the beginning, I started skydiving in 1971, February 29th. I kind of my background for competition, I think, is what got me into skydiving and acting competitive skydiving. I was a high school wrestler, did pretty good. Then I went to Southern Illinois University D1 to wrestle and made the team this first string after my junior year. And then I found out that I was a pretty average D1 wrestler. And I should have gone to a D2 school. And I was that spring, I was walking down the student union and there's a poster. SIU Sport Parachute Club, learn to jump. And so $35 I had to pay for my first jump, my gear, and all the training and the jump itself. So I did that one time, and well, here we are 50, what, I don't know how many, 55 years ago. And just kind of kept after it and enjoyed it.
Awesome. And so I've talked a little bit about your background with the U.S. Golden Knights, but how specifically did you get into accuracy landing? Because I read somewhere that you have over 6,000 accuracy landing, specifically jumps. That's more than I have skydives. How did you get into this discipline?
It's back then, you've got to realize in the early 70s like that, style and accuracy was the main discipline, competitive discipline. The RW, of course, became formation skydiving. It was called hog flop. But basically, it was just starting at the U.S. Nationals, and they had it at the Collegiate Nationals, Collegiate Nationals was three-way back loop, three-way to a different formation. And at the U.S. Nationals, it was four-way back loop, four-way. So it was in its infancy, and accuracy was the most popular. And a little tidbit on accuracy, even though I know what's happening in our countries, we're holding our own, but the average age might be going up a little bit. But even at the World Meet we had in Chicago a few years back, and everybody would come to me. I was a meet director. I said, "Oh God, four-way, it's just going to be so big. It's going to be the biggest discipline." I went, "No, it's not. Accuracy is the biggest discipline in the world. Competitive discipline, not fun jumpers is taking that in." So it's still strong in the world, and not so much in our country. So it's accuracy landing. It was just what we did. Most everybody did that, and I was very fortunate that near the SIU club we had a couple of U.S. team members, Bill Hayes, and then Tom Shapansky was a former student at SIU, and they both were on U.S. teams in accuracy. So we were so lucky to have some people like that mentor us and coach us and teach us.
Yeah, I mean, we see in the States, there's so many other competitive disciplines now that a lot of people maybe prefer to do the free fall portion of competing. But there is still the accuracy landing, and you don't have to be a swooper to compete with your canopy. So we'll get a little bit into that about the specifics of competition. And if you came to this webinar because you saw the words accuracy landing and you went, I need to get better at that with my own personal sport parachute, don't worry, we're going to cover some of that as well. We're not going to just talk competitions because Bill knows a lot about just putting your canopy down where you want to. So, but before we get into that, let's talk about the discipline, the competitive discipline of accuracy landing. So in a nutshell, I mean, a lot of people just picture the big pillowy thing and landing on it, but there's a whole lot more that goes into it. So give us the rundown of competing in accuracy landing.
Maybe I'll just describe a jump real quickly, because I realize that some people have never seen one, much less, competed in one. So most accuracy jumpers, you exit the aircraft, if you're by yourself, 3,000 feet. If you're with a team, 4-man team, which is how we compete in accuracy, at 3,500 feet. You open your parachute immediately, or if it's as a team, you'll spread your openings between 2,500 and 3,500 feet. And you got to remember too, our accuracy parachutes open quite quickly. It's not like the sport equipment we have nowadays. If you open at 2,500 feet, you're going to be actually open the parachute, pull at 25, you're open at 1,500 feet. He's open immediately. And then you just have a plan, and we'll talk more about that later, the pattern that we do, but you'll build a stack with your other jumpers, so you're spread out, and you all have a separate chance to land on what we call the tuffet, the soft thing we land on now. And basically, you'll fly your parachute about 50% brakes from when you enter the downwind. And it's real simple. We used to say, so when you come in the final, you have low and go. If you're full flight and you're short, what do you do now? Well, there's a couple of things you could do that won't help a lot. But so that way we low and go them, and then we slowly fly into that. And then the last 10 or 15 feet, we want to start coming down, straight down. And this is because nowadays the target we're aiming for is the size of a dime, and it's only measured at 16 centimeters. To give you a comparison where the equipment's, how it's evolved, when I started accuracy, the perfect score, the dead center, was basically just under 4 inches, 10 centimeters, and they measured to 10 meters. And we came in downwind with round parachutes, and the squares were just starting, would come in the other way, which got pretty interesting at times. And that's basically an accuracy jump. It's a pattern, and that, as you'll talk about later, this pattern you can use on any parachute, even your smaller parachutes. You should have a pattern, a planned pattern that you can fly. That way you can have a plan to land every time where you want to.
Yeah, and I think there's the common misconception, especially like me too, before I tried it or before I learned more about the sport, is I saw the big tuffet, which is, what is it, 6 feet, 10 feet wide?
It's about probably 4 meters, 4 meters across.
Yeah.
They vary a little bit in size.
Yeah, so I saw that and I was like, how hard could that be? You aim for the big pillow and you land on it. But I didn't realize that the actual target, like you said, is 2 centimeters, which is incredibly small. And competitors are hitting dead center of that 2 centimeters. I mean, you want to talk about landing your parachute exactly where you want it. 2 centimeters is a very small margin. So I feel like there's not enough credit given to how difficult accuracy landing can be. And once you are able to do it, you're mastering landing your canopy extremely well. So what makes accuracy landing different from other competitive skydiving disciplines? I mean, you kind of mentioned the team format, but do you need to have a team, or can you just show up by yourself? How does that work?
Well, great question. Is that yes, you can compete by yourself. We just usually get it. It used to be at the nationals. It used to be individual passes, one at a time, and it just took forever. At international, it's a 5-man team. The U.S. does 4-man teams, but we finally were able to talk USPA into going to that direction, and other competitors too, as it was more efficient. And through that, I mean, I got teams that I have competed with since the first team accuracy was held. And I mean, some of the names are, well, they might be indicative of this, the old bones, pacemakers. I don't know why they gave us those names, but it's just, you're as close in that team, even though you aren't doing physical things together as you are in a 4 and 8-way situation. The biggest difference I see, competing, have both at the national world levels at both disciplines, or formation skydiving and accuracy, is In accuracy, every jump is different, and you have absolutely no control over Mother Nature. I mean, we'd like to have some control over her, but every time, especially with our big fat parachutes, the wind, the humidity, the sun, the thermals, everything that can happen in the air, with the air, I should say, happens, and you have to make adjustments in the middle of that jump for all those conditions. And you could be turning final. Say you turn final, my altitude is 300 feet. I want to be 300 feet at half brakes, and I can be in the first, exactly where I wanted to be, and where I was that last jump. It was perfect, and it's all wrong. Now you've got to adjust and make the adjustments to still be able to get a shot. So that's Mother
I'm
Nature is the
nodding
difference.
because I know exactly that feeling of I was in the same spot I was at the last jump. Why is it not the same? And it's because, the wind and, like you said, thermals, all of that really comes into play. So you have to be able to adjust based on the things that are happening in real time. So,
And
yeah.
in our formation, jumping is once you get out of the airplane, and once you get past that first 2 seconds, and sometimes there's different airplanes when you exit, but after that, it's pretty much the same. You put things in there that can go wrong, not Mother Nature.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. So if someone is interested and wants to get into accuracy landing, but they don't have a community, so sorry, let me back up. If they want to get into competitive accuracy landing, so we're not going to talk about just landing a parachute correctly right now. If they want to get into the competitive discipline, but they don't have a community, what is the first step that you recommend for these people? Do they need to go buy new gear? Do they need what do they need to buy a tuffet? How do they start?
First of all, don't buy a new gear. Exactly, unless if you're jumping a 96 something, probably don't bring that. But I'll tell you what, most any student gear nowadays, you can learn to do accuracy with, at least get an introduction to accuracy without having to fork out a lot of money. So maybe you can borrow it from your drop zone and such, and then finding a place where they're doing it. And that isn't, I wish I could say that was the easiest thing, but there's some places, Skydive Bricks in Ohio, Lake Wales, even I just talked to Lou Hart. I think he's on today. Goes out there Saturday morning before it gets hot, even in summer, and makes a couple accuracy jumps with the tuffet. So there's a few places like that, and if you're interested, we will try to come up, and I don't know how we just talked about that earlier. We'll give you some contact information, and I'll find out, see if I can find some places that are doing some accuracy. I mentioned Lake Wales. That's probably at times can be one of the most, I won't say most competitive, but one of the places you could go where there's a lot of people, because they have a series of meets, the America Cup. And so usually at those competitions, and those competitions are great for someone learning. I mean, it's extraordinarily good for someone learning, because you can see people. And one thing about the accuracy community, I can say, I mean, all competitive skydivers are pretty welcoming, but sometimes you're probably going to get too many critiques on one jump. I mean, people are there to help you. So, and more valuable, and I was going to talk about this later, one of the most valuable things you can do in accuracy jumping is watching other accuracy jumpers and watching how they fly their parachutes all the way to the ground. So I guess not a great answer for the places, but it's the best one I got right now.
Yeah. And Bill did mention to everybody that we are going to provide, after this webinar is over, you'll all get an email with some of the resources that we mentioned, along with the recording of this video. But Bill has said that he'll include his email address in that. So if you are looking for a mentor or a place to go, and you want to just reach out to him, he can try to help you find someone in your area that he might know of that would be willing to kind of help guide you along, because it is hard to find. It's not like, there's free fly camps everywhere, and different disciplines are holding events all the time, and it's a little bit different with accuracy landing. So Bill will find a way to get you an in.
Well, I'll try it. And CPI comes to my memory too. Someone just flashing up the Connecticut parachutes. They always had some. So there's still some good accuracy jumpers floating around there.
Oh yeah, Connecticut parachutists. Yeah, yeah. All right. So now let's say they're interested. They've maybe watched some accuracy landing. They've maybe gone to an event. They're kind of beyond using the student gear, whatever parachute they were beginning with. What type of gear would you recommend for someone who wants to actually get serious about getting better in the discipline?
Once you get to the point, you say, "Hey, I kind of like this. Let's, what's my next step?" Okay, then you have to get, because once you start flying that big parachute, you're coming down on the tuffet, and we talked about that little small 2 centimeter perfect score, dead center as we call it. You can't have a lot of movement coming in. Well, you can, but it's just going to make it real hard to put your foot down on it. So what we want to do is try to land, come straight down. That's one of the reasons we have a tuffet. You had to come down straight down like that on pea gravel, the ground, you wouldn't be making very many jumps. So that got that big soft tuffet to land on. And so that's when we need our accuracy parachutes. And there's several manufacturers still in the country. They're sold. These canopies are popular worldwide. One was parachute. BD has the Zero. Parafoil, North American Dynamics, the parafoil has been a standard of accuracy jumping. The Classic by Aerodynamics, they're little. I think he's still putting them out. Those were the places to go, and they come in multiple sizes. So the best would be to get with somebody, an accuracy jumper, and get their suggestions on the size of the parachute would be best for you. And unfortunately, at the same time, I don't think these parachutes are going to fit in your current skydiving gear. And a good start would be if you get a hold of some student rigs. I mean, yeah, you won't be making a GQ magazine with that, but it's functional. It'll work. So it'll save you money and let you get the main piece of equipment you need is that accuracy canopy that has the ability, even in low winds, to park yourself over that at 10, 15 feet and slowly come down, controlled coming down. So that would be your steps towards that.
Yeah, I like your suggestion of student gear. I know a lot of drop zones have rental programs for their students. And if you're a licensed skydiver, ask them if they're comfortable with you renting out the student container with the reserve, but holds a bigger size parachute that you would need for accuracy landing.
Yep.
And Bill, you said that, they can find help getting the right size, but is there like a standard wing loading that you try to shoot for with accuracy landing, or is it just varies?
It varies with people. It's as, to be honest, as the perfect score, the dead center has gotten smaller, people have started getting a little bigger parachutes. Of course, you get that softer and the more controlled landing, but when you get the winds that are right in the normal max wind is 7 meters, was that about 20 miles an hour, 18 miles an hour, you're losing some forward speed by you're loading that less. Now people compensate slightly by lowering the nose, and you'll find accuracy jumpers, and some are known for more than others, out there between jumps, adjusting their piddling with their parachutes and changing trims and such. So, but like I'm about 165 pounds without my parachute equipment, and I jump a 280 square foot parachute, and that's roughly, if you figure that ratio, some people are jumping more, some a little less. It's best to find that parachute that's configured for your size and weight.
Yeah. And I think early you mentioned that Performance Designs is making the Zero.
The Zero, right.
This is not a plug for Performance Designs at all, but I know that they do have rentals.
Yep.
So
that's a good point. Very good point.
And I don't know about the other companies if they do, so definitely check out the other companies that Bill mentioned, but I do know that PD has a rental program. So if you want to try a zero before, committing to buying one, you definitely have that option through Performance
Yeah.
Designs.
And once in a while, the North America, there's some people that represent them will come to the accuracy meets. They'll have a couple parachutes, and it's just. But as you say, I think for a demo or a rental parachute, that would be the best bet.
Yeah. Okay, so let's swing into actually flying, your tips for accuracy landing. And I guess you can go as far as just letting people know what you would recommend on their parachute that they're not competing with and they just want to learn how to get it to
There,
where it goes, where they want it to go.
Basically, there's no difference. And the number one thing, and I think this is true, if you're jumping, a 80 square foot parachute for competitive swooping, it's a pattern, and you fly an exact pattern. I try to simplify it. When I first started, we were told you had to adjust the distance and the altitude. God, no, that's two things. That's getting a little past my simple, mind. I like trying to make it simple. So the end goal for me, and I try to start some people, we'll vary the altitude a little bit. At 300 feet, I want to be at 50% brakes facing the target. And then I will adjust the distance from the target, the tuffet, depending on the winds. Now that will just take some practice. I mean, I can't tell you at this wind you should be 200 feet back. No, I just find a spot on the ground. There are people that pace it off, and they're very particular, and I just kind of do by feel anymore. It's right near max winds, you will be turning in right above the tuffet just about. But that big parachute, you can still do the 50% brakes and be able to still make a decent approach. Just because you're close, it's where your hands are. Now the pattern, it's just like flying an airplane, downwind, base, and final. And again, in the student parachutes, I believe in this too, and I don't think that's one thing that the AFF treats. They want you kind of fly along here, full flight all the time. Well, if you're at full flight, even as a student, and you're short, what do? Well, you don't do nothing. You're screwed. So I like, maybe student parachutes, you only talk about quarter breaks, but that way you got a little whoa and go, and you plan that pattern, and then you have to practice it. I mean, to get to that 300 feet, if that's what you decide you want to learn at, and it's a good starting point. Some people are lower, some people are a little higher. Then you just practice getting there at that altitude, and that just takes a number of jumps. And it's not that hard if you're really working on it. But that's really the simplicity of it: is downwind, base, and final, basically 50%. Now the thing when I'm teaching the newer jumpers, as they're on final, I don't care. I tell them I don't care if you land long or short, but to start with, we aren't going to land left or right because the parachute wants to move. I mean, these big parachutes will move more than a small parachute will by little winds and stuff. So you got if the parachute's not facing you, the target, you can't get there. And the real common thing is my parachute's standing here, but I'm facing the parachute. I'm facing the target. My parachute's going over here. So that's my first thing to teach is left and right. I don't care if you land short or you land long. Just do a safe landing, but we'll take care of that left and right. And then we'll start making the minute changes that gets us stopped in the middle of the tuffet. So that's pretty simple. It takes a lot. It's easy to say it's simple, but it takes a while.
Yeah, I'm gonna share my personal experience with that, and you were the one who helped me. Is my first accuracy landing jump. I did not land on the tuffet. I landed right of the tuffet, and you said you have to be your parachute has to be facing the tuffet. And I said I was, and you said your head was, but your parachute wasn't. And so I had to learn, and this is something that we can take across all canopies for skydiving, is when your head, where you're looking is not necessarily where you're going because our eyes are mobile. But if you know that your head is in line with your shoulders and your hips and your harness, then you're in line with where your parachute's going. And you just told me that like right after watching my first landing, and then every other one after that, I was like, straight, straight, straight. Don't, like if I'm turning my head or if I'm turning my eyes, I got to make sure my parachute's going where I'm looking. So
one of the things I've even done, I guess I didn't do it with you. You got a tennis ball with you? Put a tennis ball here, and you put it here, and you have to hold it in there, and then you can't. Then you can't do it. I've done that with people.
yeah, to make sure your head isn't like moving or.
Turning all the time.
I don't know. I wish there was something you could keep your eyes just straight in line with where your parachute's going.
I haven't maybe blinders or something. I don't know.
Yeah, but I do think that's a huge help for sure. And then you said, being on final and half breaks, and the USPA is really pushing canopy drills and being able to do it like a flat turn from your base to your final in half breaks, so that way when you are on final, it's like you said, Bill, you have the ability to less breaks and go farther, or more breaks and come up shorter. Because if you're turning on to final, especially if you're doing a toggle whipping onto final, you don't have the same control as if you're turning flat, 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 staring straight at that target, and then you can go up or down. So
very good point. And I get the number one rule that I didn't even put in there is everything needs to be smooth. And even after that smooth turn, usually a turn isn't just down, it's usually a little ease around. Now, if it's, if you get caught, well, hey, I'm late, I got to turn. Okay, then you might turn a little harder. But after final and stuff like that, it's all smooth. I don't care if it's not enough. Let's be smooth about it. Sometimes these big parachutes, you got to put an input. Now you got to give that old girl time to make the adjustment. It'll do that. So do it real smooth, and you get to know your parachute. I mean, I can go out and buy the exact same parachute size and everything else, but we haven't learned each other yet. You'll find accuracy jumpers, once they get a parachute, they're going to keep it till it's long past its service life, because they know it. It becomes part of them.
I think that was the second piece of advice you gave to me. The first piece was fly straight, like make sure your canopy is facing the tuffet. And the second one was stop doing so much. Just do one thing and wait for it to settle out, and then small, tiny little movements, not all this crazy forward, back, stop, right, left,
And it comes from jumping smaller parachutes. I mean, you do that and it does that.
Yeah.
This big thing, it takes a while to do that.
Yeah, you have to be a little bit more patient with your parachute. And is there any drills? I know, like with free fall skydiving, you can go to the tunnel and you can practice in the tunnel your free fall skills. Is there anything that an accuracy landing competitor can do to improve their skills when they aren't flying a parachute?
Yeah, I'll tell you, probably the best thing you could do is, and this is if there's accuracy jumping going on, is, we mentioned this before, watching other accuracy jumpers. I mean, everybody has their things, the way they like to do it, but they're pretty much generally, and you just watch them. And sometimes you think they never move, but they were constantly moving, but they're just small little inputs to the parachute. Now there are some, once we get going, we talked about the small diameter dead center. Well, we can take our finger and put that down on a dime every time. Now you got to put your heel down. Now, in competitive skydiving, for the people that don't know, we take a shoe and we cut the back heel down to, not to a point, but to a pretty small angle. And that's because the regular size of the heel of a shoe is too big. It's bigger than the dead center. So you might get anything from 3 to 5 centimeters and be right on target. So we take a heel that and carve it down. There's some things people sit on a chair and just put their foot down. You'll see actually jumpers go in the airplane. They don't know what to do, and people are looking, what are those people doing? They're stepping on pieces of rock somewhere, something that's on the ground. I took it. I can't remember the old game. It's a thing where it had like 5 lights around it, about that thick, and the lights would go beep, and then they keep adding them on. Well, I put little dead centers on that, and I kept it made me learn to move my foot, because we want to be still. But let's be truthful. We get bumped around and all that stuff. So your heel's going to have to make small, minute maneuvers to land where you want to. And we don't know how, that doesn't know how to do it. So we got to practice it like anything else. Lake Wales has a fan trainer. Uh, that is something that was originally, I think, done by the Brits, I believe, but they used it to teach PLF. So you stand on a platform that 5, 6 feet tall. You hold on to it, you step off it, and it brings you down. And you put an accuracy pad there, and that way you can practice landing on an accuracy pad. I think it's the only one I know that's still in the country. And we used to do that all the time at the academy. And I'd be mean though once in a while, and I'd be down there and I'd smile as they step off. I'd slowly move it to a side because okay, now you're moving off the side, and your foot still got to get there, and your eyes got to get there. So there's things that when you become more advanced and you're starting to land on the pad that you can practice.
Yeah, I don't know what that's called. Eye foot coordination, I guess.
It is. That's what we've never done. Eye hand coordination is one thing. Eye foot. I mean, you maybe start out as a soccer player or something would help. But
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you because when you actually do try to put your heel down on something small and repetitively, even just standing still in the beginning, it's hard to make sure that your eyes are telling your foot right there. And then you add the movement to it. You're under a moving parachute, putting your foot down as things are moving. That's a really important skill to have.
and just to add this in is what we find doing. I mean, advanced jumpers will do it once in a while. Is you get there and you only got a couple feet off the ground and you quit flying your parachute. And when you reach into the left, your left hand goes like this. And that's a real common for beginning, so we teach them to follow it. You got to fly the parachute all the way to the ground. And at times I see some of my students, they're concentrating only on moving their foot accuracy. And they're quitting, they stop flying their parachute. So then we have a no land in the pad on the electronic scoring pad that day. You got to fly your parachute. And if you do perfectly, your feet are both going to land on top of it, and the pad's going to be just in front of you, and you can't move. You cannot reach. And so they have to fly their parachute all the way to the ground then. So there's little techniques we do there to teach both the flying the parachute all the way down and get the foot placement.
Yeah. Would you think just having an idea of weather patterns? I mean, as skydivers, we kind of know what to expect with thermals and turbulence, but I would imagine that having a decent knowledge of those things would help on your way to getting better. If you don't have time to fly your parachute, maybe just going out and watching what the wind is doing on a certain day.
It's true. And sometimes you can't see the things that'll get you the most. I mean, your landing zone, and especially in the hotter climates, is usually somewhere near the runway or the parking area that's spent, in the ramp at an airport. Well, and you find out, you watch some accuracy jumpers, even though that tough it is, they'll avoid on a hot day that ramp no matter what. Because you go that ramp and you can literally go up 100 feet. And if you jump by yourself, it's not so bad. But if you're jumping with a team member and he didn't go there, then you get in the problem. So there's so many things. I mean, a nice wet field versus, that ramp versus, dry grass. It all gives different lifts when, especially when the sun starts coming out and starts heating up. And you can watch the parachutes do that, especially the bigger. You won't see them effect on the small parachutes, but if you got students out there, it's fun to watch them and see what's happening. And so you can learn that way. But when it comes to that weather stuff, knowing where you're competing or where you're jumping all the time, you'll learn that spots. And after that, it's just you got to get in there and experience it. There's nothing that will help you learn to handle that stuff. And that's the problem with accuracy, is you can do everything perfect and still have a bad jump, and you did nothing wrong. Mother Nature just said, not today.
Yep. So I'm kind of going to put a plug in because
Sure.
Nationals is coming up and it's in Elsinore. And so I'm assuming we probably have some participants in this webinar who are listening and going, maybe I should try to go to nationals. So, do you have any advice other than, I guess, training for entering their very first accuracy landing competition? What piece of advice would you give them?
Uh, Probably a couple of things. One is have fun. I mean, you got to have some fun. Number two, don't try so hard. And because when we first start, we're going to put ourselves in situations at time where now it's time to say, slowly let up, go forward to get a safe landing and walk away. And sometimes I got to get down there, and then the parachute, even those big fat parachutes, will stall, and we can't react to it. If it starts falling off, you just let up real slow and smooth and hope for the best. So knowing when to say that's enough, go forward. And going to the nationals or the would be great. Even if you don't compete, if you can stay there a couple of days. And I was talking to you before we started. I'm running a judge certification course, and we're gonna have two people that are both world champions, U.S. team members, be training judges, and I will turn them loose on helping people that are just there to watch and want to learn something. They'll sit there, watch. Here's what he's doing here. Here's what he's doing here. And you could probably ask most any of those competitors, give them a little few minutes after they land, especially if they have a bad one. But and they will help you. They'll describe what's going on, and so there'll be people around there that can help you if you don't even if you go not to, just to watch. If you're going to go enter, then make a few jumps before you get there, and hopefully with someone that can help you out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, definitely try to train. But also, we all just want everyone to land safely. And so, your first piece of advice was know when you might not be landing on the tuffet and act accordingly. Because those
Yes,
last minute decisions, like, oh, I got to get there, I got to land on it no matter what, that's what can get people hurt. So,
definitely.
got to be willing to let some of them go sometimes.
Yes.
um, and that judges training course sounds like a great, like talking to people who are actually judging the competitors and watching people land. I'm definitely planning on sitting out there and getting some, some feedback just watching other people land.
No, it's yeah. Well, of course, I'm a little prejudiced. I could go to a competition. It's not much as fun jumping as it is judging. Now I was when I judge it, I have most of the time I have the ability to make sure I'm with buddies of mine and friends of mine, people I've known. The one judge, I've only been jumping with him for 50 some years, so so we have fun and their experience. So it's that makes it fun for me. And the jumpers are the same way. I mean, they're competitive jumpers are there because they like being, me. Why do I keep jumping? I'll probably still do another comp or two. I do that because not so much for the competition anymore, because I have a bad jump, I'll get mad, and then I realize I haven't trained all year. So why did I have a bad jump? But I'm hanging out with my friends. So it's a good group to be around.
Yeah. Well, that was my next question is, the accuracy landing competitors, kind of what the community is like. And it seems like, I mean, it's a relatively small group of people, so everyone seems very close, but not unwelcoming to other people joining in.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not going to answer that. You answer that because you came to me. Those are all my friends, so I'm not going to say anything bad about them. So, but you were there as a newbie. How did you feel?
Well, it was like you said, like I got so much advice. Sometimes it was like, not that it was unwarranted. I loved it,
So
but I was like,
no,
I've got too many things to work on this jump. So it was great because everyone was really open to um, helping me and encouraging me, and no one was, oh, you're not a real accuracy landing competitor because you just started, kind of thing. So no, I thought it was super fun. And you're right, everyone's there you're competing, but the point is you're having fun, and that's just great to see of everybody.
And you mentioned one thing right there, and I'll say it real quick, is that when you do get all that advice, finally decide the one thing you're going to do. Don't try to do more than one thing. At least my simple mind can't do more than one thing at a time. So I decided, even now, I'll decide on this jump, I'm going to do this. And if you do that, even if you have a bad score or whatever, it doesn't matter. You've accomplished what you can do. So don't take too much advice and try to do too much on a jump. And this is no matter where you're starting. I don't care if you're doing 8-way or whatever. Work on one thing and make it right.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so what do you, I guess, final thoughts? What's your favorite thing about accuracy landing? Because you've done other disciplines, but you're
It's
very well known in the accuracy landing realm. So what particularly about it is special to you?
I guess at this point, and I think I'm at a different point than some people might be, is I still like to, I'm still competitive. My wife's competitive. She was a D1 two sport athlete, and I was only one sport, so I'm a punk. But and my son, I could call my son right now, and he wrestled in college too. So I said, Jason, Mom did it again, and he'll say, "What rule did you change?" And because she's competitive, she's going to win, you know. So I love to compete, and it's a family thing with us. But if it was only competition, I wouldn't be going back judging or competing all the time. It's the group, it's the people. They're just fun to be around, and they're people like you. Whether I don't care if it's 4-way, 8-way, whatever, but it just I like to be around that type of person. So it's and as we said, they're welcoming to everybody. And the part, if you put the competition part in, I like the part is that every jump is different. I mean, it is some, my wife hated it when she was in, she made a couple of US teams, but she couldn't control. She could control like a formation jump or what you do. But when things were thrown at her that was out of her control, she might be a little bit control freak. But that's the part she didn't like about the sport is the differences that happened during a jump. So it's just a perspective. And but for me, that's I like the competing. I like the camaraderie, the people in it, and so I keep doing it.
Yeah, I would have to say I love it for the opposite reason as your wife is that every jump is different and every jump is an opportunity to learn from these little things that are being thrown at you, and you can really feel, you know, the wind, the thermals, all of the different things. You can see how they affect your parachute, and you're taking all that information in, which overall in the long run is just going to make you a safer skydiver. You know,
It's
we
it's
need
it's you
this.
never know when that little thing going around up front of the airplane stops. And all the flying I've done too, a couple times I went, time to go. We're climbing through 4,000 feet. No, the engine ain't working. You guys got to go. So and if you have to land, and the smaller parachute, yes, you'll need more space. But I got my big fat parachute. I'll land in someone's backyard, a little tiny backyard, no problem. I'll feel comfortable doing that. And that's just not true for those parachutes. As you get, whatever parachute you have, if you're practice landing where you want to every time, it could save you your life or broken bones because of something happening.
Yeah, I agree with that. Is because you never know when you might be landing off, worst case scenario, and you're exiting the plane where there is no open landing area and you have to be able to put it down somewhere safely. Having that knowledge of, controlling your parachute is really important. So I like it because I'm safety minded. So I'm like, this is making me safer.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. I don't care what kind of parachute you're jumping, if you know how to control it best,
Yes.
it's going to
Yeah.
keep you safe.
All right, so we have a little bit of time left. So if anybody has any questions for Bill, you can drop them in the chat. We do already have some questions. Our first question, I feel like I should know this because of my position with USPA, but I don't. And maybe you do, Bill, but it says, do you need a particular license to compete?
At the nationals, I'd have to look at, but too. It came down to USPD.
It will be
It's
in the skydivers competition
yep.
manual. So I definitely know I can answer that by saying you can go look it up in the skydiving competition manual. I don't
C
know it
for
off the top
sure.
of my
C
head.
for sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the B.
Yeah. So, Jeremy, skydivers competition manual will have the license requirements you need for every single competitive
General section
discipline.
1, I think.
Yeah, like in the very beginning. So, sorry that we don't know that off the top of our heads. Wish I had that darn manual memorized, but I don't. Let's see. Oh, someone just mentioned that the colored game you were playing with your foot was called Simon Says.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yes.
remember that.
It's great. I put a little stick of the size of the dead center, and as it moved, I had to trade my foot to move around.
Yeah, that's great. Someone wants to know if you were the coach for the USPTWOB team.
That's the Air Force Academy Parachute Wings of Blue.
Okay.
And I only did that for 29 years.
Oh, only.
Yep, 29 years. Yep.
Were you the coach in
Best, I mean,
1990?
you talked to, that was the best job in all of skydiving. They
They
gave me
wanted to know specifically the year 1990.
yes, 1984 through 2013.
Long time coach. I was in the 1990 team. I don't know if
Yes,
you remember. Omar.
Oh, look
great.
at
You look different.
that.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
Sergeant Johnson and Sergeant a few of the Sergeant Anderson, all those guys. I remember. I don't know if you remember, but I was in the 90 team.
Yeah, great, great. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Brett Michelson answered the earlier question. It said, Brett says, according to the skydivers competition manual, accuracy requires a C license. So if you're interested in doing this competitively at nationals, get a C license. If you are looking for a way to get better and to train, we'll give you Bill's email address and he will give you some resources or some mentors potentially to help you out if you're not quite to that C license level yet, but you want to get better at accuracy landing. Bill will try to find you someone in your area to help you out with that. I have my own question because I know you've gone to a couple different world level type of competitions. Do you have one place in particular going for the U.S. team that you find to be particularly memorable?
Went to Russia one time. That was memorable. It was just because, oh, wow, you know, now I understand why we got it better, even now. There's a competition. You know, I'm having a senior moment here. It's in Verona, Italy every year, and it's not a world meet, but it's the World Cup, and there are more teams there than there are at the world meet. They limit it to five. Excuse me. They're 5-man teams. They only limit it to like 45 or 50 teams, and they do the meet in 2.5 days. It's amazing, and you're right up in northern the Swiss Alps, and it's beautiful. The people are nice, and the gelato is perfect, and it's probably the best place in the world I've seen to run an accuracy meet. And when you're really after the meet, you're tired. You climb up this mountain, and you with your accuracy camping, you run off it as fast as you can, and it'll inflate, then you fly down and land on the top. My favorite place. My favorite place. Everybody else, if you do accuracy, you have to go there one time.
All right. Any other questions in the chat? Shaz, I'm so sorry. I'm not going to be able to say your name. Shazabe. I will answer your question personally off the camera because it's skydiving specific, not accuracy landing specific, but it is small girl specific. So I can help answer that question later. All right. Well, I guess without further ado, Nationals is at Skydive Elsinore, and it's in the beginning of October. It's the
We're about the 6th, 8th. something like that.
Yeah, I think the 7th is maybe the registration,
Right.
official, like final registration day. And then the 8th through the 12th are the competition days. So if you want to even just, if you're in the area and you want to come out, it's like Bill said, learning by just watching other people is awesome and super fun. And maybe if you're in the group and you're feeling like you want to compete, try to start doing some accuracy jumps right now, and maybe we'll see you there at nationals. You got any final words, Bill?
No, thank you. I just it's great like to have everybody here and to see the interest. It's probably the hardest thing we have is that there's not enough places for people to see this happen. I think if more drop zone had some accuracy jumpers, people would go, "Oh, that's something that might be fun." So it's hard to get the interest going, but I'm happy to see some people here.
Yeah, I think I mean, I just did it for one nationals, but I thought it was so much fun. I couldn't wipe the smile off my face the entire day. So,
and thank you and USPA for organizing and doing this. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
yes, of course. All right, everyone, you will get an email later on, probably next week, because I have to wait for the video to download and then edit it and then re-upload it, then email it to everyone. So next week, check your inboxes and you should have an email about this webinar. All right. Thank you very much, Bill. It was great speaking with you. Everyone else,
thank you,
have
everybody.
a great day.
Thank you.